Hello, welcome to Hope Matters, a production of Mount Olive Lutheran Church here in Santa Monica, California. I'm Pastor Eric Shafer, the senior pastor here at Mount Olive, and we're so pleased you've joined us for this weekly chance to talk to people. We talk to people from around the community, around the country, and even around the world about the theme of hope, because we believe that hope matters. Our guest today is my friend, the Reverend Dr. Kristin Largen, who is the still new President of Wartburg Lutheran Seminary in Dubuque, Iowa. Welcome, Kristin. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Pastor Shafer. It's lovely to be here.
So when did you come to Wartburg? It was fairly recently.
Yeah, I just started February 1st, and my Southern-born husband will never forgive me for moving in the middle of January. But we had a good landing, and it's been nice to have some time to get to know folks before travel has really picked up, right? It was sort of strange starting in the middle of a pandemic, but it gave me a chance to get to know the community there and Dubuque before I'll start doing some traveling this summer and the fall.
We should tell our viewers that Wartburg Seminary is one of the now 7 seminaries, right, Kristin, of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and it's located in Dubuque, Iowa, and is now one of the largest of our ELCA seminaries, if not the largest, and has had a great success in recent years of growing their student body. We can talk about that a little bit. Were the students on campus this year, Kristin?
We did have a small cohort of students who remained on campus even in the midst of the pandemic. We were still doing all of our teaching remotely, like I think most, if not all, schools were, but there was a cohort there on campus. And so again, I really enjoyed this spring having a chance to get to know them. They were a big support for one another, even as the whole community was, very supportive on Zoom. So that was great. We're looking forward to welcoming more folks back this fall.
So are you going to be 100% back on campus in the fall?
Well, we have an interesting model. When everyone had to pivot to online teaching, Wartburg was really well positioned for that because several years ago we had revamped our curriculum such that all of our classes are taught in a hybrid format now. So all of the students come in person to campus for the first week of the semester, prologue week, and then we have a small cohort that stays on campus, a cohort that learns distance, and then a cohort that is also learning via distance while they are embedded in a contextual learning site. So most of those students learn synchronously on Zoom, but some also are asynchronous learners online.
Wow. Well, that's really helpful for the person in their second career to not have to actually move physically to campus, isn't it?
That's right. And so for us, it meant that we didn't have to do any big technology investments because we were already ramped up. All of our classrooms are smart classrooms. The professors are familiar with hybrid pedagogy and Zoom pedagogy. And so, we were good to go.
A few years ago, Wartburg had some financial trouble, and then it has come back strong. What do you think has made the difference? From my point of view, you're one of the strongest seminaries we have now, and that wasn't the case, what shall we say, 10, 15 years ago. So what made the difference, do you think?
Yeah, we're really fortunate. We have a very, very strong group of alums, and they really rallied around the institution. And so the Wartburg name, the Wartburg brand is very strong. And so our supporters really stepped up for us. And I think we talk about life together, but we really mean it. We have a very strong community life, and students really love that. They experience that when either they're in person or at a distance. And we have very, very dedicated faculty and staff. And so I think that really helped us turn things around. Like you said, in just a little over 10 years, we're in a very different position than we were
before. Different position. And then with recent years, with this amazing increase in student body, that's really dramatic.
Yep.
For sure.
Yep.
So now your background, you have an interesting background. You were the dean at the Gettysburg Seminary, correct, at one point, and also the chaplain at Gettysburg College.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I came to then Gettysburg Seminary as a professor of systematic theology. And then when my predecessor, Robin Steinke, moved on to become the president at Luther Seminary, I stepped in first as interim dean and then dean. And then during the time that the seminaries were, Gettysburg Seminary and Philly Seminary were discerning about a consolidation, I was also doing some discernment about my own vocation. And so once the seminaries became United Lutheran Seminary, I served as dean just for a short time in the fall. But at the same time, then I started a call at Gettysburg College as the chaplain. And so then it was halftime at United and halftime at Gettysburg College. And I loved that. It was a really rich experience doing both simultaneously, and also then having the opportunity to work at one of our Lutheran affiliated colleges.
That's wonderful. Now, you have an interesting background, at least as I read it, and we've talked in the past. I mean, you have this interest in liberation theology and feminist theology, and then a very strong interest in interfaith work, especially relating to Eastern religions. And, that's an interesting mix. What brought the interest in interfaith work to you?
Well, it's funny. I mean, my own seminary career was at Wartburg. So I was a Wartburg graduate in 1997. And while I was there, my two theology professors, who were very formative for me, they were the ones that really encouraged that interest theologically. I mean, I could go all the way back to college, where I took a class on Thomas Merton, whom I still hold dear to my heart. And he, of course, was a very early committed Trappist monk who also was very interested in conversations with Buddhist monks and Buddhism in general. And so I think I learned early on that being a committed Christian actually goes hand in hand with also having a real commitment to and interest in and appreciation for other religious traditions. I think it actually, the process of that work makes my own Christian commitments stronger and richer and more nuanced. So I have loved that work from early on.
That's interesting you would say that, because as you know a little bit about me, that actually is very similar to my, I mean, as a young pastor, I met a Jewish doctor at a party, and we quickly realized that we had much more in common with each other than we did with our people of our own faith who weren't practicing it. And it's yeah, once you have interfaith experiences, it does allow you to look differently at your own faith, doesn't it?
Yes, that's absolutely true.
But also, as you said just now, it affirms your own faith at the same time. It doesn't detract from it.
Well, it invites you to ask new and interesting, challenging questions, right? When you're talking with someone who sees your own religious tradition with fresh eyes, and I think that always is a growth experience. I mean, this is just a teeny little example of that. But when I took a class a long time ago on the Bible as literature. It was a course at a secular university, and so it wasn't in any way Christian based. And there was a Jewish woman in the class, and so we get to the Gospels, and of course she's never read them before, and I've read them a lot. And she says, "What's with all the exorcisms? Why is Jesus always doing exorcisms?" And I of course never paid any attention to the exorcisms. That's not relevant in my life, and so I always just sort of read over those. But to hear somebody who was looking at the text with fresh eyes, pointing to the exorcisms, and for her that really stood out. And I thought, oh, yeah, those are there. What is going on with those, right? And so it's just a little example of how, talking with somebody who was reading texts that were very familiar to me, but invited me to see them in a new way.
Yeah. We have a rabbi on our staff now who preaches here and teaches here. And so that has been a wonderful thing for he and I, and also for the congregation. It doesn't make any less of a Jew or us less of Christians for any, and it's been welcome. I think we're sort of unique, obviously, in having a rabbi on our staff as a Lutheran congregation, but it's been wonderful.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So do you have time to teach any courses now that you're president? Do you do one a year or something like that? Or?
Well, that's certainly the hope. I think we have a tradition of that at Wartburg Seminary, and I think it also really helps my work when I'm out talking to donors and alums to have kind of a pulse on the classroom and engagement with the students. So I didn't do that in the spring. Of course, I just started right when
just arrived.
but I'll do that in the fall. I'm going to help team teach the sort of intro theology course with a couple of my colleagues, which I'm really looking forward to.
Oh, that will be, well, it'd be exciting for the students to have the president as their professor for that too, I would think.
I hope so.
So speaking of hope, this is the theme of our series, and so where do you find hope in your life, Kristin?
Yeah, I just, when I was preparing and thinking about this conversation, I was thinking back, just came to me the little poem from Emily Dickinson. I'm sure you know it, doing this podcast. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without words and never stops at all, and sweetest in the gale is heard. And I think about, for me, I find hope in God's constant presence in me, in the world, right? And it's kind of that the line that Joseph gives to his brothers at the very end of that story. You intended it for evil, but God intended it for good. And that sense that because of my faith, I have this deep trust that God is at work in all of creation, in all of us individually, and in the great web of the cosmos, working for good, right? Working for life and life abundant. And we don't always see it, we don't always experience it, but God is always there. And so I am connected to this presence that loves us so deeply and wants the best for us. And life is long, and things happen that are surprising and beyond what I could have expected or planned on my own. But God is always there working for that good. And so for me, it's not an abstract hope. It's not a hope that's based on human potential or anything like that. We can't count on that, but it's based on the confidence that God is always there working for the good.
That's wonderful. Thank you. That's great. That's a great response. Before we go, though, we should give you a chance to give a little plug for the seminary. If someone's interested in finding out more about Wartburg Lutheran Seminary, how do they do that?
Yeah, well, first of all, of course, they go to our website, wartburgseminary.edu. And we have Jackie Baumhover is our director of admissions. She does an excellent job, and there are easy ways to reach out to her. My email is klargen@wartburgseminary.edu. You can zip me an email and I can put you in touch with folks. But the way that I think all of us at seminaries now, we aren't so much trying to recruit for a specific seminary. I mean, we're trying to do that a little bit, but we're also really trying to encourage folks to explore their call. God has called all of us to work in the world, and the folks at seminaries can really help with that discernment. Sometimes it ends up with folks coming to seminary. We're always excited about that, but sometimes it ends up by maybe in the work that you're doing now, getting affirmed in that's where God is calling you to be right now. And so we all love to talk with folks about how God is calling them to use their gifts for glorification for God and for the service of the neighbor in the world.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for being with us today, Kristin, on Hope Matters. Yeah. This has been Hope Matters, a production of Mount Olive Lutheran Church in Santa Monica, California. Our guest today has been the Reverend Dr. Kristin Largen, who is the still new president of Wartburg Lutheran Seminary in Dubuque, Iowa. And so glad that you were with us today, Kristin.
It's great to be with you. Thank you so much, Pastor Eric.
So come back next week for a new episode of Hope Matters. We try to debut a new one every Wednesday because we believe that hope matters. We believe we have a God of hope.